Are you feeling stuck? Do you have a sense that you're not living as you thought you would be at this stage of your life? Do you have a niggling voice inside you that keeps telling you to change things up, to have the courage of your convictions and take a leap into the unknown? Because I imagine a lot of people do. It's a very human condition, especially around landmark ages, when you've reached a specific milestone in life and perhaps get a bit more reflective than usual and feel that subtle discomfort, that low-level tension in your gut and the sense that something in your inner world isn't quite aligned. That feeling of being restrained, not broken, just restricted, like you've inadvertently locked yourself in a comfort zone of your own making. Not outright despair, just a growing restlessness about living a story you didn't consciously choose. An ever-present distraction sitting on your shoulder, getting a little heavier day by day. The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard described the feeling saying, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are." So why aren't we being who we are? Are we really living inside a story we didn't consciously choose? Let's rewind a bit and assess what might get us into this predicament in the first place. What conditions conditioned our condition? Because of course, from the day we're born into this particular life, we're surrounded by influences that contribute to our individual personal stories, from our families to our childhoods, our school life, the expectations placed on us by our parents, and naturally the moments in life that helped us define right from wrong, those that drew the lines of our moral compass. And those early experiences can have lifelong consequences. A label you were given as a kid, a failure that shaped your confidence, a role you had to step into and never questioned, a version of yourself that kept you safe. And at some point, the story of you stopped being just background noise and became your identity. You stopped thinking, "That happened to me," and started resigning yourself to, "This is who I am." And that's a big shift, because an experience is something you move through, but an identity is something you carry with you through subsequent phases of your life. When you repeat that self-labeling enough times, your identity becomes reinforced and you stop questioning it. Questioning your identity can feel confronting, even when it's logical to. And when you settle on an identity as if it's a static phenomenon, it can quickly become outdated. And of course, we all do it because it's the most normal human thing to do. Our minds and nervous systems are wired to prioritize safety and security. We choose what feels secure over what feels true. We choose certainty over authenticity. And we choose the identity we know over the life we sense might be possible. You might have told yourself things like, "This is just who I am. I can't complain. People depend on me not changing," which are completely rational and reasonable thoughts to have. Yet, they kind of trap you, as if you're in a prison cell, but it has invisible walls, which you yourself created. And that story can quickly feel very familiar. Familiarity feels safe. I know I've chosen safety many times, taken the logical, predictable route, the one that avoided risk and potential disruption to my comfort zone. And of course, staying within your comfort zone does feel safe and predictable, but ultimately life can start feeling like you're performing a role, rewarded for compliance rather than originality, succeeding only within narrow parameters and being defined by labels like your job title or income level. So what happens when that comfort zone starts feeling limiting, like you're wearing velvet handcuffs? You're still comfortable, but you're confined, like an animal trapped in a golden cage. When your life script seems to play on repeat, That old narrative of who you are quietly holding back a part of yourself and controlling your choices in life's path. The feeling of being suffocated by the familiarity of your story and that you're just delaying the next chapter. Basically, a sense of being stuck. Can you relate to this feeling? No judgment here, because I honestly believe that most of us aren't stuck because we can't change. We're stuck because we just haven't fully acknowledged the real story inside of us, trying to get out. So when do you decide enough is enough? Are you waiting for a light bulb moment to be inspired to change? The inimitable American writer and civil rights activist James Baldwin cut straight to the core of this feeling when he said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." But change can be confronting. It rocks the boat, it feels uncertain, it's hard, it's scary. Not because it takes courage, but because courage asks us to step into the unknown. And that's uncomfortable. But as the writer Neil Donald Walsh reminds us, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And so does growth. We grow and reveal our true strengths when we challenge ourselves, when we embrace the unfamiliar, when we face our fears, and if we're honest with ourselves, we all kind of know that. But how to get started? How do we muster the bravery to step into the unknown? Well, maybe it doesn't have to be big, loud bravery. Maybe we don't have to charge recklessly into the future and burn the boats behind us. Maybe it just starts with looking in the mirror for an honest self-reflection and asking a few simple yet profoundly disruptive questions like, what if the life I'm living is not my truest story? What if I'm destined for more than this? What do I actually want? Just the act of questioning alone can start the process of loosening your grip on your old script and help to see how fear has been holding you back. The fear of starting again, the fear of disappointing others, the fear of being seen as selfish, the fear of the risk. We tell ourselves we're being practical, we have responsibilities, we can't just throw caution to the wind. We've got mortgages, debts, and an uncertain future in a volatile world to contend with. But even after all the reasoning, we're just afraid. And that's okay, because that realization is an important part of the process. The French-American writer Anaïs Nin captured this when she wrote, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." And that's the thing. There'll always be risks associated with change. But there are also just as many risks of staying exactly where you are. Because we tend to prioritize thinking of all the risks of leaping into the unknown, but rarely talk about the risks of not being true to ourselves, of accepting our lot, of living a life that looks fine but feels incomplete. So what else can we do to write the new script for our next chapter? Well, you can also take pause to honestly reflect on how you talk about yourself, especially when you're being negative and describing your weaknesses. When you say, "I'm not good at that," or "I've never been that type of person," or "knowing my luck," or "I couldn't possibly do that." Those aren't objective facts. They're self-limiting conclusions you've drawn about yourself. They're doors you've closed to yourself. Take charge of your inner voice and intentionally shift your perspective. For example, instead of thinking, "I'm not good at that," tell yourself, "That's something I can learn to do." Instead of, "I've never been that type of person," say, "I've got too comfortable choosing familiarity." That shift matters, because the identity we've become so attached to will always feel fixed. But behavior is flexible, and having a can-do attitude to behavior change is a great step in the right direction. Next, and this is easier said than done, but we have to stop letting the past dictate our future. We can't stay hung up on what's transpired in our lives, whether it was painful or pleasurable. Whatever's happened, happened. I'm not saying forget your past, but let's learn the lessons from it and consciously decide to move on. And I know that's easy for me to say, and I don't mean to be flippant, especially if you've lived through pain and struggle. But you do have a choice to stop letting your past define every chapter of your life yet to come. The writer Joseph Campbell said, "We must be willing to let go of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us." That doesn't mean reckless abandonment. It means honest alignment. Aligning the truest version of yourself, the one you know deep within, with your passions, your strengths, your dreams, your attitude, and most importantly, your actions. And action is the hardest part, and the bit people will wait the longest time to just bite the bullet and take that step of the journey. And that is, without doubt, the hardest, most challenging step. But here's the thing, the best time to start is always right now. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to wait until you feel ready. You don't have to wait for that light bulb moment. Nobody is going to shoot a starting gun to begin this race. So just start. Start small, start imperfect. Just trust yourself to start writing the next chapter of your life. Learn by doing, find clarity while building momentum, and begin your new story today. Speak when you normally stay silent. Say no when you usually comply. Try the thing you've been delaying for the longest time. Just take one step toward what feels real, what feels authentic in your heart. You'll know it's right because it'll feel right when you're moving in the direction you were always meant to go in. And yeah, of course, there'll be risks. I'm not saying go blindfolded into the future or wear rose-tinted glasses and don't plan things out meticulously. You've got to be sensible and be on the ball, because the fact is, you could fail. You could disappoint people. But let's be honest for a second. The biggest risk is not failing. The biggest risk is living a life that isn't yours. Living a life driven by expectation, shaped by fear, and a life where you quietly betray yourself every single day. The iconic poet T.S. Eliot said, "Only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far it is possible to go." Choosing yourself doesn't mean rejecting others either. It means refusing to disappear. Refusing to accept a role that you've clearly outgrown and a life of being invisible to yourself. And I'm not saying this has to be some dramatic life reinvention. I'm talking about a pivot to pursue your passion and making life decisions consciously, intentionally, and honestly. You don't need permission to write your own script for the next chapter in your life. You're already the author. And you're not alone. We can do this together. Unlearn our old habits, question our conditioned identities, trust ourselves, and choose truth rather than comfort. Let's collectively opt for authenticity over familiarity. Let's accept the risk of being true to ourselves, because the cost of staying safe is living small and not finding out what we're really capable of, not realizing just how great we are. The reward of being brave is a life that will finally feel like our own. So I'll leave you with this. If you could write a totally new script for the next chapter of your life, what exactly are you waiting for? And on that note, I'll stop there for today. I'd like to thank you for watching today's episode. Feel free to share it with anyone it might resonate with. Leave a comment with your thoughts, and if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again soon.